Welcome to the Women's National League Wrap for Series 25. It's kind of hard to believe that we're already at the tail end of the season, only 2 weekends left. I'm joined again with Alanna, and we're going to talk about all the action from the weekend as usual. We'll start with Peamount beating Cork City 8-1. I think Peamount are just kind of unstoppable at the moment. And if you're reflecting on kind of the season as a whole, I mean, I think it's probably safe enough to say that they will go on to become the champions. And do you think that they are deserving champions this year?
Oh, definitely. I don't think anyone could argue that one. Their team is just absolutely dazzled with stars all over the pitch and off it too. Like, I mean, on their bench and their manager too, James O'Callaghan. Like, I suppose if you watch the WNL, you'd notice too they rotate quite often. So it's not just those individual displays. Their whole team is just a class above at the minute, and it's a collective effort. I suppose in saying that though too, it doesn't help, or it doesn't hinder them that Anya O'Gorman is top of the Golden Boot race, along with Alanna Ryan-Doyle, who obviously left. But yeah, no more than like her and Stephanie Roach, and then you've the younger, I suppose, powerhouses of the league like Tegan Ruddy, Sive Doyle, Alana McAvoy. They're only going to go on to cement that status further.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Golden Boot race, and that kind of brings us into our second game that we're going to talk about, which is Wexford Utes beating Bohemians 7-0 with Ellen Malloy and Kylie Murphy both recording hat-tricks, which, you know, gave them another boost in the Golden Boot race. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on who is going to come out on top, because it's so close to call at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's funny, you know, everyone was kind of getting excited that particular race like just ignited in the last few days. Yeah, you've Anya there at the top on 15, closely followed by Eleanor Ryan-Doyle and Ellen Malloy on 14, Kylie Murphy and Saoirse Noonan still in the hunt there too. So I think it's interesting if you look at the remaining few games. Peamount have DLR, who are kind of known for being defensively sound this year, and also Galway, who it could be said are the same in that regard, steadfast enough at the back. And Wexford, on the other hand, are idle next series. So you'd think, geez, I don't know if Eleanor Ryan-Doyle and Kylie Murphy are to do it, they'd want to rack up some serious goals against Shells. And obviously the Reds there with Bows and then Wexford before the league final. So I suppose all that's to say is, like, given the Utes are sitting out next week, it would take a massive performance, as I say, from Malloy or Kylie Murphy to close that gap. So I think if Anya can even just sustain where she's at right now against Waves and then try push on maybe against Galway, she might just scrape it.
Yeah, I think the thing with Anya is she went off injured against Peamount, so we don't know if, or not against Peamount, against Cork City. So we'll see if she can come back and get a few goals to cement that lead at the top. Moving on, then we had Athlone Town beating DLR Waves 1-0. I guess a bit of a shock result in some ways. Do you think? I don't know. I think maybe over the last few weeks, DLR Waves have maybe lost themselves a little bit. Have a bit of a losing, like lost a few games when they're not used to losing so many games in a row. Is it that, or is it that Athlone Town are finding their feet? Because equally, they've been quite impressive.
Yeah, I think it's the latter, to be honest. Like, I think Tommy Hewitt and his crew have really improved recently, and like 2 wins in their last 3, anyone would forgive them for that blip against Peamount. Like, I think that one's allowed. But I similarly, I think DLR's prominence this season, and if you look at where they were last year, can't be understated. Like, I mean, I know what you're saying, they kind of tailed off these last few games, but like to place 4th, if they can finish out there, and that's a solid finish for them, and they can like go on and see if they can do even better next season. But Athlone, I think Roisin Malloy there, who bagged the goal at the end, she's really come into her own in that team, as has Muireann Devaney and Leisha O'Hada since she's come in. But I think it's a funny one. If Sligo Rovers get their team together, Athlone may suffer in that regard, because Muireann's from Leisha and Roisin Malloy's from Sligo, and there's a few other Sligo players there too. But we'll have to wait and see, can they retain all these players going into next season and build on this recent good performances.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make, actually. And then finally we had Shelbourne beating Galway 2-0, another televised game, and it wasn't an easy game for Shelbourne by any means. How impactful do you think that these TG car broadcasts are being?
Yeah, I think they're really impactful. Shell seem to always turn it on under the bright lights, as they say. But the matches on TV is brilliant for the awareness of the game. It's those kind of incidental viewers, I suppose, who come across it, maybe just like flicking through the channels, and like even at the weekend, it was at a prime enough time, I thought. Anyways, I thought it was so cool, like, you know, being able to watch it. And I suppose the big difference was it was dark, let's say, like, you know, it was on at like a time where like people would be sitting down to watch TV. So I suppose it was great to give those football crazed people an outlet. And then on top of that, I mean, yeah, obviously have the inspiration factor. It's nearly a tale as old as time now, but if you can't see it, you can't be it. And for kids growing up, I'm sure like they'll be inspired by that, and the WNL will be reaping the rewards for years to come.
Yeah, hopefully. And then our final point then for today is that Treaty are obviously on the hunt for a new manager. And yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on if there was any candidates you think would really fit the role. We had a few suggestions in Laura Hefner from DLR Waves under-19s, Phil Trail, who's Galway's under-17 manager, Mike McCarthy, who is the assistant manager for Treaty. There's loads that you could consider, but do you have your eye on anyone who you think might be a good fit?
Yeah, I think I said it before, Treaty are a side with real potential. I don't know what it is about them. I just think they have something with them that'll, like, they can really go on the incline now and see if they can build on what they've done this season, next season, because they're still so newly formed. Like, I mean, the only way is really up. So I think, as I say, there's definitely plenty of options. I think Marie Curtin could be an interesting one, being, you know, former captain and a member of the background team this year. She'd be well aware of like the ethos of the club. But there's also, I suppose, as you say, a much more ready-made talent, you know, Jess Lawton at a course under-19 setup, and Lizzie Kent, who's been brilliant for the under-19s Republic of Ireland team. So yeah, it'll be definitely fascinating to see who goes for it. There's a wealth of possibilities going.
Yeah, hopefully they can build then for next season, because as you said, there's so much potential in the team. And I think there's, the kind of underdog status of them. We're all rooting for them, and they're a fearless team with loads of talent. So yeah, it would be great to see them kind of get settled for next season and build on what they've done this season as well. But thanks a million, Alanna. That's all we're going to talk about for this week. Obviously, as I said before, just 2 weekends left, so nearing the tail end of the season. And yeah, it's been great to have you the whole time, and hopefully speak to you again soon.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.